All right, the Viking is live.
All right. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for making it. If you want to put something in Slack, Jeff, that says we're live on Crypto over Coffee. So the first thing I want to talk about, you guys who were here last week, got to see last week or the week before. I'm not sure which one it was. We did a live Ledger wallet setup, and I talked about some of the reasons why you're going to need a hardware wallet. Turns out that's pretty good information. There's been some more news from Coinbase here in the last week and a half. This is going to make me do this again. There we go. So Coinbase announced that if they were to go bankrupt, the assets that their customers hold on the Coinbase exchange might be subject to bankruptcy proceedings, which means that they would be just taken and sold to cover their losses. So these were some of the headlines that were coming out. And when we actually had this news come out, we had a run on hardware wallets. Some people who had never heard of us before walked in. They're like, "Do you guys sell hardware wallets here?" Then we sold 2 Ledgers and 2 Trezors and a whole bunch of the Ballet Wallets. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the Ballet Wallets today. I'm not going to get attacked by this wasp over there.
You have a spotter?
I don't think so. Somewhere around here. So this is what I was talking about earlier. These were some of the quotes from some of the articles that we were reading. And what people need to realize, the rule of thumb that we use in the crypto space is if it's not your keys, it's not your crypto. So how many of you guys have set up a hardware wallet of some kind or even a digital wallet? Okay, so you guys who have gone through the process, you know, whenever you go through that wallet creation process, you're given like 12 words as a seed phrase, right? Those are your keys. And those are actually, the reason they're called keys is because that is what allows you to access your crypto that exists on the blockchain. This is another misconception that hardware wallets or digital wallets actually take your crypto assets and store them within the device or within the software. It's not true. The crypto always exists on the blockchain. That's all. That's the only place that it exists. Crypto being a digital currency, it's just on a ledger, right? There's no anything moving around, not even really zeros and ones. It's all on the blockchain. So that's kind of what I was saying here. Access to your crypto wallet, right? The actual piece of hardware, if you were to buy a ledger, for example, the one we did last week, the key to get into that is that long string of words. On Coinbase, the exchange, actually holds the keys for you so that you only have to remember like a 4-digit PIN, right? That just makes it a lot easier. That's why Coinbase is so widely used. It has made this really complex, difficult, oftentimes thing to use cryptocurrency into a very simple and easy thing to do. That doesn't come without ramifications like this, right? You aren't really in control of your crypto, and that's what people are learning now. As retail investors grow and more people get into it, these are kind of the lessons that everybody needs to learn. So hardware wallets, as I mentioned last week, do 2 things that are super important if you want to be in control of your crypto assets. The first one is that it lets you actually control your keys. So if you guys remember, I had to sit here and have you guys make small talk while I wrote down the 24 words for the Ledger wallet and enter them in manually in the right order. And because I own those words and no one else is going to get them unless they find the piece of paper or the piece of metal that they're etched into that I have in like a safety deposit box, for example, they're not going to be able to access my crypto. Even if they got the device itself is PIN and password protected. So it's next to impossible that even someone who could steal the device is going to be able to access the crypto assets that are on it. And this is something else that's really interesting. The hardware wallets keep your keys offline, right? They're never connected to the internet, which is why whenever you actually get that piece of hardware, to plug it into the computer, interface with it, and then you can see the blockchain from there. And that's why they call it cold storage, right? Your keys are never exposed to the internet. So last week we did the Ballet Wallet. This week last week we did the Ledger. This week we want to do the Ballet Wallet. I think you guys have probably seen these. These were created by Jeff, remember the name? Bobby Lee, right?
Bobby Lee.
Bobby Lee.
Charlie Lee's brother.
Charlie Lee's brother. Charlie Lee is the founder of Litecoin, right? So Bobby Lee, it's really cool that they're two brothers that are doing so much in the cryptocurrency space. The Ballet Wallet is really, really interesting for several reasons. First and foremost, it kind of blends together what you would consider to be a digital wallet and a hardware wallet. So a digital wallet is something like Coinbase Wallet. How many of you guys have a Coinbase wallet? Right, there's Coinbase and there's the Coinbase Wallet. So Coinbase is holding on the exchange. That's the exchange holding your crypto assets custodially, like I mentioned before. Coinbase did come out with a digital wallet where you get the 12 words and you get your keys and then you're in control. The Ballet wallets are interesting because they kind of blend the two. So the keys are actually stored on the physical wallet itself, which makes the actual device something like a bearer asset, right? Like gold, where if I give you this device, here you go, this is now, you are in control of the crypto assets. Really, really interesting concept. And then the front part of the wallet, which I'll open up here, I've got one open, has a QR code that is the public address for that wallet. I'm going to hold it up to the camera maybe. So what you can do with that is before I even open this up or set it up, I can scan that QR code and deposit $50 worth of Bitcoin into it, say, and then I can give this as a gift to somebody. And then whenever they actually unbox it, set it up on their phone, they now have control over that $50 worth of Bitcoin, or $10 if it goes down like like crazy by the time you give it to them. There we go.
They're two separate cards, or they're two separate cards, I guess. Or one's a wallet and one's just a QR code thing, or
On the actual device here?
yeah,
On the piece
held
of-
up, yeah. Or no, it's all one and the same.
Yeah, all
Oh,
the
okay,
same.
I got it.
Yep. So if I go back a slide, yeah, the picture's kind of misleading. There is this peel sticker that you can peel up, and behind that is your actual encrypted private key, right? So this is your password down here. Your private key is hidden behind the public address, and then you can peel that up to get the actual encrypted private key. So this is the other cool thing. You can deposit as much crypto into this as you want, but if you want to remove any of it, if you want to sell any of it, you have to scratch off the wallet passphrase, peel back the sticker, get your private key. So these are really, really great for gifts, and they're a really, really cheap way to get into something that's considered a cold storage wallet. So these are $40 compared to, yeah, why don't you guys pass that around? $40 compared to the Ledger and the Trezor, which are anywhere from $70 to like $150, depending on which model you get. The other great thing about the Ballet Wallet, like I said, kind of best of both worlds. The Ledger, you've got to interface with a laptop or some kind of PC. You got to plug it in, you got to download their software, interface with it that way. The Ballet Wallets come with a native app, so you can actually just download it on your phone, and setup is really, really easy. Provides all the essential functions of something that you want out of a hardware wallet, while also remaining out of a digital wallet, while allowing your private keys to stay offline, just like in the Ledger. And as far as it goes with security, so for all the reasons that I said before, with keeping your keys offline, away from the internet, and being able to have a interface over a digital app with just a regular password, it's going to be a lot better than keeping on the exchange, right? It's really the point that I'm just trying to nail home here. No one's going to be able to gain unauthorized access to your crypto unless they get the actual card, which is the big difference here. So I'd like to do a live setup, but before I do that, is anybody interested in getting one today? Because if we do, then I'll just set you up right now, and we'll do it live. If not, then I will do, I guess, the one that we've got open.
Sounds like a lot of Bitcoins.
So Jeff, tell everybody about while I'm downloading the app, tell everybody what about the high school, how we use these.
Yeah, so these are the ones, I don't know if you guys were here, but I talked about handing, sorry.
I set the screen up.
I talked about getting high school students engaged. So what we did is we preloaded these with anywhere from $5, $10, $20, $50, or $100 worth of Bitcoin. And basically, I told them that I was going to talk about the fundamentals of Bitcoin and the why aspect. And then after the presentation, I was going to ask 20 questions, and whoever answered the questions, there's about 35 students at the time, so close to half of them would get a Ballet Wallet preloaded with, a random increment. So these are the wallets that I use because they're very simple. Like Jonas said, these are perfect for gifts. So I had my goddaughter. I preloaded a couple $100 worth of Bitcoin in this, so hopefully when she turns 18, it'll be worth something, right? So, so for Christmas or any other event, and the cool thing is you can just scan the QR code. So every birthday or every Christmas, you can keep the QR code and just preload it, right? So they don't have to actually come to you. You can just have it preloaded and do that. So, but yeah, I mean the kids were really engaged. They loved basically what we were doing, and for us, we wanted them, instead of just listening to us, we wanted them to actually go through the process of finding out what's in the wallet, if they want $100, how to exchange it, how to convert it to fiat, and go through that process themselves. So we're just because it's very simple, and it's great for newer people. We're probably going to utilize the Ballet Wallets as we go to more high schools. And as we go to more, we're going to film this weekend over like St. Charles, just Main Street, and just hand out these, right? Just to do a video shoot and ask random folks about it. But this is, of course, the best way to do it, because I feel like that the ledger and the Trezor are more. If you have thousands and thousands of Bitcoin, it's probably what you should use, but it's a process, right? You saw him doing it last week, where it's a lot of steps, but it's going to be the most secure. But to get started, this definitely is the easiest one to do.
Later on, assuming you started with that, are you able to migrate off of that onto?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You can. All you do is pull this QR code tab, peel it, and then you can transfer it to any.
So same as you would transfer.
And so this is actually exactly what I did. I got started, this was my first hardware wallet, and I got XRP onto it, because you can't really hold XRP in too many software wallets, so I just want to put on a hardware one. And after a while, when I got more and more XRP, I decided I want to send it over to my ledger, Nano, or maybe it was the Trezor, I think that's what it was. But I went through the process of sending it from here to the Trezor, and it was actually a really simple process. It was as easy as simple as setting it up.
Yeah, so these hold, I think it's up to 100 different tokens, 100 or 140 tokens.
Even Shiba you can put on there.
Yeah, so they're like I said, for people, I posted the video on a Bitcoin forum on Reddit, and I got a lot of flack because of the Bitcoin maxis were like, oh, that's not something, that just because, so people that are naysayers of the Ballet, because these are the codes are already preloaded in here, they assume that Ballet is going to take all their coins, right? So that's the one thing that naysayers would say about these things. That's why we tell people for a few $100, these are fine. But if they're,
If you're putting $1 million on
Yeah.
there are
they're more
safer,
secure,
more
right?
secure places to do
But for us, we're just trying to get folks that are early into it.
Which is why we love the fact that you can preload these without taking ownership of them, right? So you can put $50 on there
Yeah,
and hand it
they
to a
become more-
stranger.
Become more tangible for folks, right?
Yeah.
So
And can
it's-
they just set
helps
that in
bridge
their
that
drawer forever and let
Yeah.
it sit there and
yeah, put it in their security box or
safe deposit box or
Yeah.
safe or whatever?
Soft
Yeah.
drawers.
And then what if you do open it and you have to scratch it? Can you still use that card? Can you still deposit more?
yeah. They just have it like this, so it's not visible to everybody, right? So it's just to you, right? So once you take it off, then it becomes visible.
Okay.
So
So I'll go ahead and set one up. I'm just going to use, I hope we didn't get those mixed up. I'm pretty sure this was the one that we had in here. So I've already got an open box one. And it's really as easy as this 2-step part here. So I just downloaded the app. Let me see if I can come around here and show on the camera. As soon as you open up the app, this is what it looks like. You've got just a basic UI, and it's actually telling you the first 2 steps. So you tap a card to start, or you scan to add a new wallet. So I'm going to do the bottom one. I'm going to click scan to add a new wallet. Yeah, I'm just going to use the camera. And then just like you see on the screen there, it's popped up this looking for a QR code. And there you go. So now I've got my wallet set up. I can rename it if I want. I could make it Crypto World Bitcoin Wallet, and then I can start loading things to it. So that was like a 2-step process.
yeah,
That is much easier than the Ledger, the Trezors. The fact that I'm ready to go now.
I think
You're going through the process, all right. Oh, wait.
at least on the Ballet, you can purchase.
You can. So now there are, I'll come back to the camera and show this again. So now that I have the wallet set up, there are buttons up here. I can receive, buy, swap, or send. So if I want to receive, I can, right now it's set to Bitcoin. Of course, all of your different crypto assets are going to have different. Yeah, there you go.
Receive, buy, exchange, and send.
If you wanted to add more tokens, it's just right underneath. You just click add more tokens. You scroll through, find what you want to receive. And just like any other software wallet, but now it's protected with private keys on a physical metal card.
So if you're gonna set this up originally, then you would set it up with a regular fiat bank account to be able to buy?
Buying from a bank account, I'm not sure that you're actually going to be able to do.
No, I wouldn't imagine you can do that.
Yeah.
You would buy from an exchange. It would link to an exchange, and then you could just set it up from there. It's more of a lily pad process. Although apparently the buy function is not available on the iOS version of the app.
Probably because it's US. I think maybe
Could be
regulations.
regulatory.
Because I know they're out of Hong Kong, maybe. So
Yep. So that was it. That was really as easy as it is.
So if
That's
I wanted to secure
even
my
better.
crypto, I would move it into that
From Coinbase, from an exchange onto that.
from my platform.
Right.
Is there a fee to do that? Typically charged by sending.
Coinbase has a
Coinbase
small
might.
fee. Yeah.
It's a network fee that would be deducted when you send it from one
Yeah.
place to another.
Typically very small.
Okay, good.
All right, so next I want to go over the Terra Luna news, the Terra Luna UST crash. This was, probably should have done this last week, but a lot more information has come out, and actually apparently even more information last night. So maybe all of this is moot at this point. This was really, really interesting. I knew the basics of what happens, but as I learned more to try to tell everybody else, so much happened to play into this that caused that. It's actually crazy. So I found a really, really awesome article on medium.com by an author by the name of Sales Wallet. I guess it's pseudonym. but he did a play-by-play of like, here's this guy, and here's all these things that happened from all these other people at all these other places in time, and here's what the result was. And then he speculates that some of the, potential behind the scenes causes could have been. Really, really good article. I recommend you would go and check that out if you want to learn more. I'm just going to kind of cherry pick some of the highlights and some of the things that I learned. So Terra apparently is an ecosystem of decentralized stablecoins. I didn't even know that. I thought Terra was a coin in the very, very beginning. So Luna was Terra's native cryptocurrency coin that was used for staking, paying transaction, tabling, voting for governance, right? But it was to remain pegged to their respective fiat currencies. That was part of this whole pegging process. And there's a mint and burn feature in the Terra ecosystem that made this kind of thing possible. And that's actually what I was going to do here was UST was the decentralized stablecoin that was pegged to the US dollar, right? UST, those just always be $1. So on Terra, $1 worth of Luna can always be burned to mint $1 worth of UST, and one UST can always be burned to mint $1 worth of Luna. Now there's this interesting thing where if UST is trading at, and this is just an example, of course, I think this was like a gross exaggeration, it's trading like $1.50 for some reason. It's 50% above its $1 peg. If you held Luna, you could burn the $1 worth of Luna to mint $1.50 worth of UST. And then you can sell that UST for a different stable coin. And then boom, you just made 50% profit instantly. They had mechanisms in place to, try to keep this from happening. When you're in a bull market, this kind of thing isn't really a problem. But as soon as you start hitting into a bear market, it can cause what's called a death spiral. And I think I actually get into that later. Yeah, so this was the other part. $1 worth of Luna can always be burned to mint one UST. One UST can always be burned to mint $1 of Luna. So this was kind of the $1 peg cycle, right? So there, if you were above the peg and below the peg, you could kind of manipulate the system to get an instant profit. And so this is the part that I wanted to get to. The 50% profit that someone would gain is going to result in an increase in the UST supply. And it's also going to impact the sell pressure from other Luna holders, right? This is just normal market kind of stuff. But if this process were to be manipulated in a bear market, that's when you get the death spiral. And that's what this is here. But for all the reasons that I listed just before, that's why UST is called an algorithmic stablecoin. So it's got a process of maintaining the peg, and it sounds really good on paper, but as soon as you depeg UST, especially during a bear market, then you get this, where Luna loses value. That means you've got a bank run on UST, and you've got more Luna minted. And because more Luna is minted, Luna loses more value, more people bank run on UST, and it just keeps going and going like that until you just hit oblivion.
They have to keep up with each other
Right.
constantly.
Right. There's just really interesting market factors with supply and demand that when I started learning about this, it's like, wow, this is insane. This is the name of the article. If you guys would like to learn more, really, really good stuff. I mean, you just keep scrolling for hours. He had diagrams and screenshots of articles. A lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, that's a problem with yield farming, just diving a little bit deeper.
Right.
What happened with the Luna is that say I owned a bunch of Luna and I wanted to make interest off of that Luna. There's something called yield farming, and you see it all the time. It's a big part of DeFi. So basically what I would do is lock up my Luna, and then I believe it was called Anchor was what you get for your Luna. So that's getting 20% interest on it that's great. You know, I put $1,000 in, I'm making, you know, 20% on that. You know, that you can't get that return anywhere, you know. But the problem is when an event like this happens, that goes down, and now that whole piece is worthless. So when you get into yield farming, there's really a lot bigger risk than what they're saying, you know. So when you're staking a coin and they're promising you 80, 90, 100% returns, I don't do it.
Yeah.
But you can do it, but make sure you don't do it for a long time, because everything goes up and down, up and down. And what really happened, I think, you know, just a little bit deeper is that there's a lot of smart people out there, like hedge fund people and people with a whole lot of money and a lot of smarts. And they saw a flaw in the system and they exploited it. So people were like, let's short Luna.
Well, so this is what I was going to get into next. There's the whodunit, right?
Yeah.
And the conclusion drawn by the author in this article was probably the feds.
It could have been the feds.
They probably had a large hand to play in it, but he also said a lot of stuff about the yield farming and just
the
big
yield
whale market participants.
And the thing that is funny about this is the guy who invented, so in crypto, a lot of coins have like the guy, you know, like Vitalik Buterin or Satoshi Nakamoto, who you don't know, or Charles Hoskinson. This guy was Do Kwon, was his name. His Twitter handle was Stable Kwon. Anyways, this guy, if you ever watched professional wrestling, World Wrestling Federation, this guy would be an all-time heel. He was kind of a real jerk. You know, he ripped this is not sustainable. He ripped every other project.
Yeah.
So so there were so many people who just this guy, everyone hated him just because he was kind of a real big douchebag, to be honest. He said, like a couple months ago, he said one of the funnest things is watching someone make a lot of promises and then the coin implode. He put that out on YouTube, you know, and so he's out of South Korea, and South Korea is one of the most regulated crypto. It's actually very positive. I mean, this guy's going to spend a lot of time in jail. But the sad part about this is that there were people with millions and millions of dollars that just got wiped out. Right? It's like $40 billion. $40 billion just wiped out. There were
billion, and that's 3.5 billion.
40. No, it was 4. Luna was worth.
He said one guy had 3.5
Yeah.
billion.
Oh, I'm sure there were several suicides that were that were attributed to this. You know, so I mean, this isn't financial advice or anything like that. But when you see yield farming, you're going to make 60%. You know, just don't.
Yeah, do it for 2 days.
You know, I mean, that's unless you really know what you're doing, don't do it. That's why, you know, a lot of the best strategy is, you know, stick with stuff that's easy, like Bitcoin, Ethereum. You know, I'm a Cardano guy. There's other fairly good projects out there, but you something like this, if you put a ton of money into it, it's all wiped out. And I looked at Luna and I saw it going up, but I never put any money into it, mainly because the guy was kind of a real tool who was running it. It's like, you know, would you want to invest all your or a significant amount of money in a guy who acts like he's a manager on a WWE type of thing? I mean, it's just really, you know. You
Yeah, and also the article did mention he had a lot of enemies. He kind of painted a target on his back. He did go over some coincidences that were, kind of pointing to maybe the Fed having a hand in this. The number one coincidence, or I guess the first one, was that the Federal Reserve mentioned the risks of stablecoin runs on stablecoins, as in the USD debacle, in its financial stability report, which was released on the Monday after Terra began collapsing. Which the timing of that is just really great, right? Like they've prepared this report, Terra's on the list, and then we're just going to release it. Just so happens on the day that Terra kind of takes a little bit of a dip, right? Because now people are looking at Terra who hold it, and they're like, oh, it's kind of dipping a little bit. And all of a sudden there's this big news from the Fed that, oh man, stablecoin runs could be a big problem, like Terra. Coincidence number two, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen mentioned Terra's collapse in her testimony to U.S. politicians just 2 days later after that. So again, it was like, oh man, it's almost like they knew. Coincidence number three, Tether's USDT stablecoin also briefly fell below its peg, which was part of the cycle that I showed you earlier. And this is also something that Janet mentioned in her testimony 1 day later. Coincidence number four was just the overall timing of the supposed attack. This hits on something that I didn't quite mention, which was that the USD Terra Luna team depegged UST. They did some changes to the code, right? And that was part of what people are saying caused this downfall. But pulling it out of what's called the curve finance, this author argued that was probably one of the biggest pieces of evidence that this was an attack from someone or a group of people instead of just
There was blood in the water and
normal
everyone
market
jumped in.
evidence. Right. Yeah. So, Enoch, you were
Yeah, you want to go
telling me
first?
earlier, you want to tell me a little bit more about what you were.
Okay, can you go first? Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about what you were talking about. That was really interesting.
Okay, so this is just something I saw on Reddit last night. I'll put it right here. But, okay. So there was a guy, a journalist, who's like in Luna. Hold up. The tweets aren't coming up. But he was saying that there's like some stuff coming out that like there's a bunch of whistleblowers that like people inside of Luna and even SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried of FTX was like behind like the fall of Luna, like the death spiral, the attack on it and stuff like that. I think the gist of it is that so this is not the first time that Luna had depegged. There have been two previous points where it had come off of its peg significantly. And I think the gist of it, I'm not an expert on this, is that they'd gotten bailouts previously so that the depegging didn't look as bad, but they had to pay the firms that gave them money to keep it afloat. And so they were paying like millions of dollars or millions of Luna a month to these people. And it was becoming unfeasible. And so they all sort of like pulled out to like get their money back and stuff like that. I think
People
is
who
the
were
gist of
bailing
it.
them out pulled
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and this is a guy, reporting things. He says there's several whistleblowers that have come forward. We'll see what actually develops, but that was like front page of the cryptocurrency subreddit last night, and he's a journalist on Twitter who's like he's specifically for Luna, is like what he follows, and he's got like 27K followers on Twitter. So seems like a figure in the space.
Yeah, and they had accumulated a ton of Bitcoin, trading Luna for Bitcoin, so they had a huge Bitcoin reserve. And one of the things that hurt them was that a bunch of people were shorting Bitcoin at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so shorting Bitcoin is driving down the value of their reserves. And since they had so much Bitcoin, it drove down the cost of Luna. So keeping that dollar peg, they were just throwing money after money. They burned over 80,000 Bitcoin just to try to support it. Now that 80,000 Bitcoin's gone.
That was something else that I read. It's incredible.
I mean, it was just really a bad scene.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. That was all I wanted to talk about today. We went over the Coinbase news, hardware wallets. and then this insane Terra Luna UST stuff. So I'm gonna let you guys get back to your coffee and donuts. And actually, I think we've got some online comments here. Let's see, any questions? Nope, lots of scams though. Lots of scammers in the comments.
There's been a lot of stories about scams lately. Yeah, and like I think in January and February, we've already had more money like lost to DeFi hacks than all of like 2020 and 2021 put together.
Wow.
Like it's outrageous.
Well, that's that's the thing that people don't realize is that all this staking on there, they're actually physical people write programs in a particular language, and it's open source, so you can see how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't write the code the right way, there's going to be someone out there who is going to figure out how to get around it. That's why like DeFi kind of scares me. I don't like
Leading edge technology.
I mean, because it's only as good as how the code is, and you can't go in and read the code and know, hey, this is good. I mean, I can look at it, but I want to be smart enough to pick it up. There's a hell of a lot of people out there who are way smarter who can do it. So my rule is not, I don't really do it, but if it's 40,